It's Nikki Palamountain here from Dyslexia Unpuzzled in Hawke's Bay. Welcome to our monthly podcast where we share real stories of courage, advocacy, and transformation from people who are helping to shift how we understand learning. At Dyslexia Unpuzzled, we're passionate about helping people recognise that learning challenges are not a reflection of intelligence, but of how the brain processes information. When understanding changes, lives change. I'm incredibly honoured today to be joined by a dear friend and colleague whose work has had a profound impact on dyslexia awareness far beyond individual learners. Welcome, Sue. It was lovely to have you along. So I'd just like to introduce Sue Hall, who is a Davis Dyslexia Correction Facilitator, author of the book Fish Don't Climb Trees, and an international speaker, founder of the Dyslexic Society, and the driving force behind the award-winning documentary, Who Knew Dyslexia is a Way of Thinking. So welcome. I'm so glad to be having this conversation with you this afternoon.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Well, it's just lovely to have you. So before we talk about documentaries and awards, I'd love to go right back to the beginning. So please, can you share what first drew you into working with dyslexia and what made this work feel so deeply personal and important for you?
Um, well, my son has always loved learning. And before he went to school, he was absorbing so much information on Knowledge Network, and he was an animal expert. But when he went to school, it was a different story. He was really unhappy. I went in to help with the reading one day and noticed that he was way behind his peers. He seemed to get the math, but this reading and the spelling was not getting anywhere for him. So, a long, long story short, I've discovered this book, The Gift of Dyslexia by Ronald D. Davis. And I heard what I wanted to hear at a talk by Robin Temple, who was one of the early facilitators. And so George had one of these programs, and he was 10 at the time. And as you know, the programs are 1 week long. And on that Friday, at the end of his program, he said to me, Mom, dyslexia is like a wound. In the past, they gave me band-aids for it, but now I can heal it myself. And I tell you what, when a 10-year-old says something like that to you, there's no way you can do anything else but train to become a facilitator.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful thing for sure. So,
Yeah.
but it's become more than a job for you. It's felt like something you have been truly called to do.
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I don't know how people feel about their work, but when you sort of have this feeling that you're really here doing what you're meant to be doing, it's a very, very cool feeling. And a sort of tiny weird thing that happened. I did my training in England, and we had just applied for Canadians to be able to come to Canada as immigrants. And I remember driving home the very last day of my training in England, and there was this car parked on the side of the road. And in the back window, it had this great big sign that said, on a mission. And I thought, okay, fine. I get the message. So here I arrived in Canada, and I was the first full-time facilitator. So it was up to me to get things going, and I've just enjoyed every bit of it since then.
Oh, wow, and get going. You have indeed. So, a question here, as you began working with dyslexic learners, what did you start noticing that the wider education seemed to misunderstand or overlook?
Well, I was seeing little ones arrive on my doorstep, mostly sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, that sort of age group, but they were convinced they were stupid. And you only had to spend a couple of minutes with them, and you could see that they were as bright as anything, so full of life and so sharp, and maybe wise beyond their years very often. And I thought, well, this is just ridiculous. I mean, how can an education system say these kids are learning disabled when they know every detail of everything that has happened in their lives? And they have no problem with memory recall. If you ask them what film they saw the weekend before, they'll tell you the whole story. And so seeing these bright little people arrive, I mean, there was no way you could even consider them to be learning disabled.
Yes, so you've long spoken about dyslexia as not being a deficit at all, but it is a different way of thinking. So for someone listening who still associates dyslexia with difficulty, failure, or limitation, how would you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So when when they come for an interview, um, we ask them what they love and what they're not so keen on, and then I explain who I am, and I say to them, I work with children and adults who have a particular way of thinking and learning, but it's not necessarily the way they've been taught. So if you're taught one way and you think another way, there's going to be a challenge, and it's got nothing to do with you. It's just the fact that the system isn't able to teach you in the way that you learn. And when I say that, usually there's a connection, and people just sort of almost sigh with relief because they just need to know that it's not them. Then there's nothing wrong with their brains. Their brains are working perfectly fine. But to give you an analogy, they're probably, I would describe them as the little Apple Macs who are in a PC system, and there's nothing wrong with their computer. So they're perfectly capable of learning. In fact,
Well,
maybe more so.
that's such a good analogy, isn't it? The PC trying to work in an Apple system or whichever way around you put it. So what strengths do you consistently see when dyslexic thinkers are supported in a way that actually matches how their brain works?
Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, to be general, they're very creative. And it can be creative in all sorts of different ways. They're the little athlete who just knows where to be on the soccer pitch or the hockey field. They're the artists, the designers, I had a young lady who was about 14. She was an amazing graphic designer. Actually, she did the cover for my book, which was incredible. And then you have the problem solvers. I'm working with one this week who's 10 and can solve any problem. His Rubik's Cube broke. And so he was trying to get this little piece back into it. And he knew he could do it. And he was quite determined. And it's just for businessmen, they can be creative in a way of seeing strengths that other people can't see or seeing pathways that others can't see. So and the trades. I've had a lot of people from the trades that who are brilliant carpenters or plumbers or electricians. They can be in charge of a whole work site because they can totally see what's going to be needed. So I don't know that that's completely answered your question because I'm talking about the support that they need to have a program that we deliver and to be able to be supported after that program. But it would be difficult for somebody to support them if they really didn't understand how they thought and how they learned.
Mm. So you've worked with many children and adults over years. So what, from your perspective, where does in the education system most often miss dyslexic thinkers? Because the stats are there's 1 in 5 or 20% of a classroom, even as I've heard the statistic as being as high as 30%. So where is the education system not connecting for these people?
Well, I mean, I don't think the education system has any idea of how we think and how we learn, that we have this perceptual ability, that it brings in strengths, it brings in challenges. I don't think that's ever something that teachers are made aware of in teacher training colleges. The fact that we need pictures for the meaning of all the words that we read or hear, that I don't think that has drifted through to the teaching system. So I think the way they teach, they're going to miss these children anyway. I think they're being sent into a classroom with one hand tied behind their backs, to be honest. And it's not their fault because they're well-meaning teachers, obviously, but they just don't have the tools that they need to be able to meet these kids. But when it comes to the testing, yes, the official numbers are somewhere between 10 and 15%, but they're only the ones who get tested. And I don't know how it is for you in your part of the world, but for us, very, very, quite a lot of the children are not tested because they weren't behavior problems. They were struggling a bit with reading or writing or math, but they weren't a behavior problem. And the priority seems to go to those who are acting out because of their way of thinking. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and you're very right. So, and if somebody is just behaving themselves and doing the right thing and trying their hardest and whatever, they do get overlooked, and everybody assumes that they're doing okay, which is, as we know, quite often not the case. So, what impact then does that misunderstanding have on a person's confidence, self-belief, and a person's sense of what's possible for them over time? So, yeah, what is the impact of that misunderstanding?
Well, the chances are they will get tested, and so if they get tested, then they'll have a label attached to them. It'll be dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyspraxia. There will be some label that starts with dys, and so automatically they'll think there's something wrong with them. They'll be given more of what they couldn't do in the beginning, which means it compounds the fact that they think they're stupid, that the methods don't work in school, they don't work at home, they don't work with the tutor. And so they really begin to live this belief that there really is something wrong with them. And you can't feel confident, you can't have a belief in yourself if you're constantly given a message that there's something wrong with you. And why aren't you doing it? This person did it, that person is succeeding, but you're not. It's a very, very uncomfortable place for them to be. And so if you grow up with that feeling, then there's a very good chance that you feel limited and you feel, well, there's no way I'm ever going to get to go to university, or there's no way I'm ever going to get my dream job because I just won't be able to pass the exams or do the stuff. And for me personally, I had a really good school and I did quite well. I was one of those ones who worked really hard, and I got good grades. And I remember when I left school at 18, I had the grades to go to university. I didn't know I was dyslexic, but there was a strong part of me that promised myself I would never, ever read another book as long as I lived. And so I didn't go to university because I knew something was telling me it's not for you.
That's so sad. So because when you think, and it brings me to my next point, that you've clearly moved in your work beyond that one-to-one support, and the advocacy that you have done in the wider community is way more important than any individual intervention, is the fact that you're bringing this awareness to the community. So can you please talk us through what led you to create Who Knew Dyslexia as a Way of Thinking?
Well, because obviously we need to attract clients. In the very beginning, I used to give free information sessions. So I would go to a library, or I would find somewhere that would let me, hold a little meeting for people. I never used to charge. It was a free information session. I got used to being able to speak to people about what we do and how it works and why it happens. And I used to go to professional development day sessions in schools, and I thought to myself, this is all very well. There's just me, and maybe I'm reaching 15 or 20 people, but I really need to reach a wider audience. So then I wrote my book, and that was doing quite nicely. And then I saw that I could see if I could audition, if you like, for a local TEDx. And I thought, well, that's going to get me to see a few more people. And that one is on YouTube, and that's had a lot of likes and a lot of views. And then eventually I thought, well, we saw this Tell Us Story Hive, which is a local sort of communication company, they were advertising that they would give people funding to be able to create a documentary. And they did it in two ways. They wanted either the person who knew nothing about filmmaking but had a lovely topic, or they wanted the filmmaker who knew everything about filming but didn't have a topic. So I was in the former category. I knew nothing about filmmaking, but I had a really good topic. So the society put in a bid for this money, and we got it. And so we got the money, and we got introductions to a film mentor from the National Screen Institute, and we got a beautiful director who was amazing. She knew nothing about dyslexia. I knew nothing about filmmaking. We had a really good time swapping stories. And eventually, I created a storyboard. I mean, I knew what we needed to say, but that was my limit. She got us filming for 3 days, and then that was the interesting part, where we didn't script any of the filming. We just had questions to and different sort of aspects of what we needed to introduce, and then she, bless her heart, put it all together, and we ended up with a documentary, which was very exciting.
Well, that's amazing. So, and the film has recently received international recognition, winning the Short Documentary Award across all the categories at the New York International Women's Film Festival. Oh, I bet that, yeah, I know that's exciting. So, what did that recognition mean to you?
Well, it's sort of surreal, really. I mean, it means a lot because it means that people who knew nothing about dyslexia felt it was getting a message across. I mean, obviously, there are different categories. You have best director, best producer, best lighting, filming, that type of thing, best editing. But the one in New York, we've got all the categories checked, which is pretty amazing. Kelly also won the best female director at the Indianapolis one. And the film itself was shown in Los Angeles at the Women's Festival there. So to me, it means that, and actually backing up a little bit, Kelly's goal was for people who knew nothing to know something. And my goal, obviously, was a little bit more, that I wanted to be able to introduce this sort of gentle introduction, if you like, to teachers and educators. So we had similar goals, but I think we've managed to reach both with a bit of luck. And she's certainly thrilled to pieces. She's putting us in for something called the Leo Awards, which is in Vancouver, which is BC's version of the Golden Globes.
Oh, how exciting is that?
No, well, she's putting us in. We haven't got there yet.
Oh, well, look, I'm confident. I can see you holding that golden statue.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. As you look ahead, what gives you hope about where dyslexia awareness and education could be heading?
Oh, well, I guess when I do professional development sessions for teachers and special ed assistants, they are very, very open to hearing what we have to say. And the overwhelming reaction is, I had no idea, right? So that's very encouraging, because obviously we're able to give them some information they didn't have already. Unfortunately, it doesn't ever seem to go very much further. That's the challenge I feel at the moment. So what I'm hoping for is connected to another project that we had. We were given funding to create a professional development pilot for early educators, people working with 3 to 5-year-olds. That pilot was last year. It was really well done, and it was well received, I mean. And then this year, we're doing a second pilot with also for early childhood educators. The first one was fully funded. This one they have to pay for. So we're doing phases, if you like. Phase 1 was completely free for everybody. Phase 2 is a budgeted one. But I'm hoping phase 3 could be one more pilot, but have a university oversee it, because I don't think we're going to get very far in the actual education system until we have some sort of independent academic agreement that what we do is definitely worthwhile. So that's where I'm hoping to go. On a sort of grassroots level, the more ECAs use these methods, hopefully the more K-3 teachers will wonder what they're doing. So it could grow that way, but it's slow and it's difficult to get into the system. Maybe you found that.
I have indeed. Yep. Very slow progress, but you just have to keep those wheels of progress turning, however slowly they happen, is my philosophy.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So your work is such a powerful reminder that learning differences are not problems to be fixed, but perspectives to be understood. So I think you want to thank you for your courage and your advocacy and your unwavering belief in dyslexic thinkers everywhere. Before we finished, I'd really like it, please, if you could share with our listeners, where they can buy your book and perhaps more about your work with the Dyslexic Society.
Absolutely. Thank you. The book is called Fish Don't Climb Trees. You can get it from Amazon. It was published by Friesen Press. If anybody wants to try and find Friesen Press on Google, and it's in paperback, hardback, and audio. Audio, thanks to COVID, because I couldn't do anything else but lock myself in the cupboard and record it.
Beautiful.
So that's the book. The whole Dyslexic Society. When I was a new facilitator, I was constantly reminded that not everybody can afford the programs that we offer. And so I thought, well, I can't take a hit every time. We need to do some fundraising. So we created the society, which enables us to fundraise. We're now a charity, we can give tax receipts. And so we built up a fund that people can apply for a little bit of assistance. And sadly, it's not a huge amount, but it's a little bit to help make sure, because these programs are not always, how can I put this? Sometimes parents know they need the program for their children, but it's a financially challenging time. So we need to make sure it's available to everybody. What I did notice was with the outreach, being a nonprofit, I was being welcomed into school districts and conferences because they felt I was a little bit nonpartisan, which was also very encouraging. So we had more invitations for the outreach. We had funding for the programs, and then this prevention objective where we're working with little ones and hopefully K-3 teachers. That is something that we're very passionate about at the moment, because we know that if we use our methods preventatively, if you like, from the very beginning, then the challenges don't arise. More children got, no children got sent to special ed, all the reading levels went up, and more children got sent to the gifted program. So we know it has this ability to change the system and to maybe get rid of those ridiculous labels that aren't even true labels.
Perfect.
So that's what we do. And the community thing is fantastic, because look at this. I'm in Canada, you're in Australia. New Zealand.
New Zealand, yeah.
big gap. I'm in Canada, you're in New Zealand. And we're able to have this sort of conversation. It's amazing.
It's pretty brilliant, all right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good place to say to our listeners, if anything in this conversation this afternoon has resonated with you, or if you would like support around dyslexia or learning differences, you're very, very welcome to get in touch with either Sue or myself. So Sue, if people have been listening and would like to learn more about your work or watch Who Knew, where's the best place for them to find you?
Well, thank you. If you would like to go to our website, it's www.the WDS stands for Whole Dyslexic Society. So www.thewdrds.org. And you can always email us info@thewds.org as well. And we always love to hear from you, whatever we can do to help.
That's amazing. Thank you, Sue. And if anything in this conversation has resonated with you, or you'd like support around dyslexia or learning differences, or even just to have a chat, you're very welcome just to get in touch with me as well. And you can email me at dyslexiaunpuzzled@gmail.com or check me out on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in on Radio Hawke's Bay, 104.7 FM and 14:31 AM. You can listen to this interview on Tuesday afternoons at 3:00 PM. Ngā mihi nui. We'll see you again another time. Thank you so much, Sue.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Perfect. I just have to record this blurb before we hang up. In this episode, I'm joined by Sue Hall, a long-time dyslexia advocate, Davis Correction Facilitator, and author of Fish Don't Climb Trees, founder of the Dyslexic Society and the driving force behind the award-winning documentary, Who Knew Dyslexia is a Way of Thinking. So shares her personal journey into this work, why dyslexia needs to be understood as a way of thinking rather than a deficit, and what she has learned from working with children and adults whose intelligence was overlooked by traditional education. We also talk about advocacy, awareness, and what needs to change so more people can truly love learning and fulfill their potential. Listen out on Tuesday at 3:00 PM on Radio Hawke's Bay, 104.7 FM and 14:31 AM.